Hey, what the hell are you doing walking around dressed like Star Wars?
It's Comic-Con, you idiot. We're going to the Javits Center.
Well, you're the idiots, because you three guys would never be walking together.
Yeah, you're his boss, and you two guys are enemies.
Yeah, bite me, Captain Kirk.
Hey, whoa, come on. No, that's Star Trek.
Yeah, that's two different franchises.
Yeah, sorry, guys. She doesn't know.
Nah, it's okay. I'm sorry you have to deal with that.
Let's go.
Oh, hey, come on. It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. Not worth it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fanzone Debate. We are here for a good one, I hope, an exciting one. We got two people I like very much. We got Bill Cariola going up against Tyler Burch. Very exciting. Bill has challenged for the belt. Since then, had a bit of a rocky road, had some really good wins, had some not so great losses. So, looking to get back on the winning side of things. On the other hand, we got Tyler Burch, who started off not on the best foot, but in more recent matches has been doing really, really well. Was one of the highlights of the back half of the season last year. So I think both of these guys are really good, very differing in their style, but also I think two guys who are really respectful and when debating can have like a really good conversation. So I'm looking forward to it. We got Kirk and Robert here to judge this one with me. Going to be very exciting. Let's go and get into it right away. Here's how it's going to work. There are going to be 4 prep questions based off of 4 categories that the players drafted. We gave them the questions. They're going to debate the questions tonight before our very souls. So each of them is going to get a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of the debate, Robert, Kirk, and I will write on our handy-dandy boards who we thought won the question. 2 out of 3 votes wins you a point. First person to 3 points wins the match. Gentlemen, any questions?
No.
Let's do it. All right. So we're going to kick this off with the first category, which was drafted by Bill. This was in the category of action adventure. The question is, what is the best fight in a pre-2000s Jean-Claude Van Damme movie? Bill, because you drafted this, you get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
All right. To quote some asshole that has been on this thing previously, I come to these movies not to see some kind of realistic thing. I watch these movies to see cool shit. And when I'm going through the Van Damme catalog, one of the coolest fights is the very first fight scene we see him in Hard Target. It's him. He's helping out Yancey Butler, who's getting attacked by about 4 or 5 guys. Shows up, and it's John Woo working the camera to his John Wooiest, and hilariously awesome hijinks ensue. He beats up like 4 or 5 dudes. Fuck it, it's great. They try to fight him. They're no match. He uses one dude's foot to kick it into another dude's head. He breaks another guy's arm right in half. Steven Seagal could never. Everything about this ticks all my boxes, makes me feel all warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. I think it's just a beautifully great time, and it should be embraced and enjoyed by everybody on the planet, from the littlest kid to the oldest adult. Time.
Yeah. I'll lift this one up for Ellie right after this. All right. Tyler, 1 minute when you start talking.
My pick for best fight in a pre-2000s Van Damme movie is going to be the climax fight of Bloodsport. Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Chong Li. This fight is the culmination of a tournament of fights. It's a culmination of pretty much every single thing that has happened in this movie so far. As far as a climax, it's a worthy climax just because we get to see Frank Dux use things like the training with the blindfold, with the salt pill. We get a really good grasp of what kind of person and fighter Chong Li is. We get a lot of great motivation because of how Chong Li put Van Damme's friend and Jackson into the hospital, and he taunts him with the blindfold. It checks a lot of boxes because it's not only a great fight, it has a lot of great emotions, a lot of motivations, all about how Frank Dux wants to become the best. How Chong Li hates him because he broke the record. The fight is great. You get to see
We talk about hilarious hijinks. There's a part where he jumps off of the referee's shoulder to be able to kick Chong Li.
Okay. All right. Excellent openings, guys. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking. I will throw up the 1-minute warning when the time comes. I will also, if one of you is talking way too much and pissing me off, I'm going to throw up the let your opponent talk. Don't
we call that the Bill rule, right?
Sure. It makes me sad, frankly.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
I have to send Nick to your house. There's a whole legal thing to go into it. I don't want to deal with it. So 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So how does this work? You talk first, I talk first. Little Star Wars joke there for you. So. I'm trying to lighten the mood. I know I usually come all these things guns blazing, try to stifle that a little bit. You picked a fine fight. I'm going to say that right now. It's fun. I mean, you're going after in my top 5. You're coming for it, and I understand that. But it's kind of just like fine. I think Kickboxer is slightly better because one, we got the crippling of the brother. The bad guy is holding the belt. They do the thing with the bro. It's sort of like that whole one-on-one fight has been kind of done just that much better. The only thing that would make it better, fucking 5 guys at once. Like it's just some kind of insane fist fight gangbang. I fucking love it personally for me. We get to watch one guy get swept and he falls into the hood of a car. Like that's just like comic and fucking amazing. I mean, that's just me though. So I don't want to. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, yeah. So the thing about your fight, there's hijinks. It's kind of like reminds me of watching a scene from Back to the Future, seeing just all this wacky stuff that happens. I was really surprised when I watched the movie because I didn't realize that the fight had happened. If you had not pointed out what fight it was, I probably would have just missed it completely, waiting to see when it's going to happen. There's a lot more things that stand out in that film that overshadow that fight, I think. Pretty much everything that happens in that Mardi Gras warehouse, even the cold open with somebody being hunted. Like there's a lot of scenes in there, a lot of action that really overshadows this fight where there's no real stakes. I mean, he just blows in here like a mysterious stranger and he fights these guys and then he just kind of walks away. I prefer, for the best fights are always going to be the ones that really matter. And you mentioned like the kickboxer fight. The Bloodsport came out before Kickboxer, so really it just kind of replicated what Bloodsport did. So really, I want to go for the original for me. Things like Chong Li just, waiting for people to chant his name before he finished somebody off. His fight with Jackson, like all of that, taking the blindfold, like all of that really builds up this character as somebody who's very proud. Getting to see Frank Dux be able to fight him, to get that blindfold back at the end of the fight, do 4 kicks, get him to yield, which is, the greatest disgrace that you could do to somebody like Chong Li. Like everything about that film, all those fights, like those, like you said with Kickboxer, that fight has been done later on because of the fact that it was such a well done fight that everybody wanted to replicate that with Van Damme.
So here's the thing. You said that my fight was like over before it happens. It didn't really do anything. And here's what I'm going to disagree with you. One, it doesn't overstay its welcome. Sometimes you just need to do a proof, like you want to set the tone and you want to introduce this person. So we haven't really seen Van Damme yet. This is our introduction to him as a character and what he's going to bring to the table in this movie. So Yancy Butler doesn't know who this guy is. And then all of a sudden she has 4 or 5 guys that are roughing her up. And then here he comes. He is calm. He is cool. He is in charge of everything. He even lets off a great one-liner. And I don't know why. I love this bit where he's like pulling back his jacket. You think it's going to be a gun. It's his fucking leg because that's the actual weapon. It's his legs. And then immediately kicks 2 guys right in their faces, knocks one of their sunglasses off. One dude eats a fucking hitching post and has the wettest, thunkest crunk noise I think I've ever heard. It just sticks with you. It's memorable and it's amazing. And it immediately sets up like, okay, now I want to see where this guy goes. Then you can build off that. Then you can do the whole jump up on the no one's driving the motorcycle while shooting the 2 guns. And I keep bringing up Kickboxer because it is Bloodsport, just slightly better. You keep talking about how like, we've raised up, Chong Li, but at the same time, we've raised up the bad guy. He is going in. I'm not going to discuss what the bad guy in Bloodsport did to the woman in the film because I don't think it's necessary, but it really builds what a despicable character is. I want to see him get his comeuppance a lot more than I want to see in the other one. I mean, Bloodsport's fine. It's an okay fight. Honestly, the only thing I really remember of it is when we turned Jun Lee into the drummer. So, in the GIF. So go ahead.
I mean, I think things like, the crushing of the salt pill, throwing that in his eyes, saying, some of the, like, even Chong Li gets a one-liner of, like, the leading up to that fight about, like, the brick doesn't fight back. Getting to see, and just knowing what this fight means, how it's so important to Frank Dux, like I said, avenging his friend. I also didn't even talk about how the fact that, like, the reason why he's in this tournament is to honor his master, and how we cut back to see the fact that he had tried to steal a katana, and that's how he met his master. And then in the end, he receives his katana for winning the tournament, and how that became a full circle moment. It's I'll just wait.
Okay.
No, I get it.
Right. Tyler, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Like I've been saying about Hard Target, I mean, this fight doesn't really have any stakes, any emotional stakes. I mean, he comes in, he fights these guys. There's some improvised weapon stuff that is kind of interesting, but really I kind of forgot about it as soon as we got moving on, because there were other things that were way more interesting with, the Mardi Gras warehouse, all the explosions, him catching the grenade, everything that happens in there. For me, like, I'm here for the best fight. For me is always going to be something that has emotional stakes in it, something where, it's the climax of the movie. So that's why Bloodsport is so interesting to me, because he does need to fight back against Chong Li because he hurt his friend. He took the bandana. Like, there's this rivalry because Frank Dux had broken his record previously, and he hated that his friend had almost made him yield. And so getting to see him get his comeuppance, having to yield something, to break his pride, because he's a very prideful person, seeing some of the moves that Frank Dux had to use, like calling back to when he trained with his blindfold on, so that way he could see with the salt pill, how flexible he is with his kicks.
Okay. Let's move over to Bill. Bill, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Look, the end of Bloodsport's fine. It just goes on a little too long. You could chop off a few minutes of it, and I think we'd be having a different conversation. But we're going for not what has the most emotional stakes. We're going for the best fight. And honestly, it's right there in Hard Target. Everything is right there, set up. It's cool. It's stylized. It's got the John Woo-isms that we all come to love. And it's just got memorable little moments, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It gets its point across in under 2 minutes, and it's fabulous. I want to see a guy use another guy's limb as a weapon. I want to see a guy get his head cracked open. I want to see the arm snap every time. You include an arm snap in your movie, I'm going to remember your movie, even if it's a piece of shit, because then it's just fucking rad as hell. I don't care who you talk to. That is what we're looking for. We want to see that kind of shit in these kinds of movies. Like, it sets the tone for all the rest of the crazy shit that's coming. This lets you know, like, hey, this is what you're in for, and it's going to knock your dick in the dirt, dust it off, make it feel good, knock it right back down. Time.
Oh, my God.
I've had my dick knocked in the dirt.
I've gotten real good at, like, getting that last 5 seconds out. Like, that's been the hardest thing for me, is timing that thought.
All right. Okay. Good start. Both convinced me that these are entertaining, good fight scenes. I went with Bill. I think Bill just like he made it so overly clear to me that his was just the more entertaining. And I think he had a good point of saying, like, this, excuse me, that this isn't like the most emotional or most whatever. It's just the best and overall. And I thought that he really convinced me of that. So I went with Bill. Kirk.
Yeah, as soon as they hit their opening, it's like, oh, this is going to be good, because they set the tone right off the bat, where they were both arguing kind of different reasons why their fight was good. They both did a great job of it. Ultimately, I went with Tyler, and my reason being is because I think Bill really sold me on his fight being entertaining, but Tyler locked me in with the stakes and the setup payoff and why that makes it a better fight. And he still gave me enough where, it's still a good fight scene. It's not just that stuff. There's some good fight stuff seen in there. I was looking for Bill to give me maybe a little more about why Bill's fight just wasn't good. And I was getting a lot about Kickboxer, but I wasn't getting a lot about the fight itself. So, again, great fight, but I gave slight edge to Tyler.
Okay, Robert, where are you going and why?
It's great. First debate judges. That wonderful. Yeah, it seemed like this debate kind of boiled down to like one is cooler and is kind of more streamlined, and the other one's kind of more emotionally resonant, I guess. And how it is that they debated it sort of dictated how we think about what is most important in this context. And it sort of went up and down for me. I was sort of with Bill at the beginning, and then I shifted to Tyler, and it's been back and forth. I ultimately went with, I said Billfold. I went with puns early. I went with Bill. I just felt like by the end, he did give me enough to argue against Tyler's. And I think it was just kind of like a flurry of punches from Bill. I just got so much detail about what was going on with Hard Target. And the emotional aspects of what Tyler was talking about, while important, I don't think it necessarily plays out as necessary for best fight. So I give it to Bill.
Okay. All right. Bill wins the first point. We are going to move on to the next category, which was drafted by Tyler in the category of epic adventures. Your question is, which scene in a mummy movie is the most intense? Tyler, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
The most intense in a scene in a mummy movie for me is going to be really his first scene after reawakening in The Mummy. And that's going to be Imhotep attacking Mr. Burns and Hamunaptra. This, for me, is one of the best ways for you to get introduced to a monster. It sets such a great tone with how gloomy it is inside the pyramid walls after everybody gets, thrown in there. Mr. Burns loses his glasses. He has a whole Velma moment. He can't see anything. He's just fumbling along through the walls. Benny takes his light, so he's literally just fumbling through the dark. He starts hearing creepy noises. Even though he's got a gun, he's not confident about shooting it because he can't see anything. And then once he knows something's behind him, you just wait, and then he turns, and then all of a sudden it just cuts. And then just, a little bit later, you see Evie, and she finds him, and he's missing his eyes. You realize that is what had happened. And, she thinks that he's a savior. And then when he turns around, she realizes, no, he's a victim.
Okay. Let's go over to Bill. Bill, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Well, we don't have to journey too far for my moment because it happens a few minutes before Towers. So, and the scene is they're digging around in the pyramid, and the warden, jailer, has gone off on his own, and he's picking at scarabs because they're like blue gold or some crap, I don't know. And one of them accidentally falls to the ground, comes alive, and burrows into him and starts crawling around under his flesh, going into his brain, having a good old time up there, to the point where he is in such agony he has to run straight into a wall to basically kill himself. Now, I don't know about you, but that is quite intense, to say the least. And this is before we even see a mummy. So this is like a mission statement right here of like, hey, it's just going to get real gross from here on out. A lot of bugs in your skin, in your brain. RFK.
All right.
I'm sorry, I just had to throw it.
5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So,
Okay. Nope, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that yours is probably the most cathartic moment of seeing a man who's consumed by his own greed. But if I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't feel the intensity about it. You see the CGI globs going around, and then all of a sudden, he runs into a wall. For me, honestly, I think it would be you would have been more intense if you had chosen the one with Jonathan after we know what those scarabs can do, and seeing him almost about to die, and then Rick has to cut it out. Like, I think that's more intense than your scene.
Okay. See, here's the thing. And it's the thing that's the most intense about it is while we see the after effects of Mr. Burns, while we see the after effects of Jonathan. The thing is, like, we don't get to see what is actually happening, like, while that thing is running around inside him. Like, we find out later, but we are left in that moment when that scene is happening live. We are left on our own devices. And there's a pretty famous quote from George Lucas that says, like, it's more terrifying the thing you can't see. And that always sticks with me because it's always been the way for me. Like, if I'm left to my own imagination, I'm going to think up some pretty awful things. And watching a guy that would rather crush his own head open than to live through what is happening to him. I mean, that's intense, folks. Like, I don't know how else to put it.
But the way you just described it is exactly what happens with Mr. Burns. We don't know what happens to him after he hears the noise and he turns around. We don't know if he's dead. We don't know if he survived. We don't know anything that happened until we see him in that later scene. So talking about intensity of the unknown, that my scene also has that, and that's how it caps off before you find him again. And you think, and they toy with you a little bit because they say, oh, okay, he's fine. It's no problem. He's looking away. Evie thinks he's that savior, and then when he turns around, he's missing the eyes. Like, and that's the most intense way to cap it off. Realizing this guy has been victimized by the mummy after it came back to life, and we're just learning more about it.
I mean, it's not really because we know that's what's happening. Because I forget what that guy's name was. Was the Fez? He's the what do they call that? The
Benny?
No, not Benny. Now the other guy who's leading the pack. The exposition machine they brought with them. That's explaining, like, just when they find it, like, oh, and he's going to eat all your shit. So we know what's pretty much about to happen. We have an idea. And the thing is, like, I think it's undercut by a wet fart of a payoff. Because we also don't see what happens with yours, but we do see the end result. And unfortunately, both our scenes suffer from slightly bad CGI. Mine just got around a little bit better because, like, he didn't have to do a whole scene trying to act with, like, bad looking eyes, and it's played for a jump scare that I don't think quite works. Like, doesn't really land. Like, it lands better in other areas, like when he comes back for him, but I mean, that's besides the point. The thing is with the jailer, though, it is just so awful because you don't quite know. You find out later, and then your mind fills in some gaps, but, like, you're left on your own devices. And to see somebody who would rather die and take themselves out and unalive themselves than live through this, that's a whole other intense that I can just bear to think of. Like, that's an awful way to go. Also, if you want to see pride about getting comeuppance at Benny's death at the end is way more satisfying. Like, by a lot.
Also with Scarabs, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I think that the Scarab death, it just becomes kind of overdone, and there's done better later on. So that makes it a little bit less tense. Maybe just in that moment you get a little freaked out. Honestly, for me, like, the way you're painting it with how this jailer just can't deal with the agony and he runs and pretty much unalives himself, like you said, I never got that. Honestly, for him, he's been so bumbling the whole time. I wasn't sure if it was an accident or if it was on purpose when he did that. And so that kind of cuts down on the tension that we have at the very end, because you just don't know. I mean, for me,
I feel like we do know because he runs right past everybody directly into it. And I think it's the wet thud that he hits with just really drives it home that much more. And he's dead. We don't see him again after that. At least Mr. Burns, I mean, got his eyes fucked off, but I mean, he got to at least try to recover a little bit and maybe get a normal life. I mean, he's not going to get a normal life because
this isn't about the most intense death. This is about the most intense scene.
Yeah.
Yours, like, I just don't see how it's intense. Like with mine, like I said, the atmosphere, the fact that he doesn't have a light source, the fact that he can't see, the fact that we don't really know what's going on. We know that the mummy is alive, but we don't know what the mummy is going to do. And then it just plays on you. It plays on all of your senses, which is the most terrifying. It plays, he has to touch the wall. He can't see anything. He hears things. He doesn't know what's going on. He can't really trust anything that's around him.
All right, Bill, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think the thing that undercuts the Mr. Burns scene, and I think all of us on the call here who wear glasses could say, like, that is just so comically ridiculous. I mean, unless he is so nearsighted, he could see behind him. Like, it takes me out of it every time. But it's the tension doesn't quite work as well. The tension works in mine because it's so directed to the point. It's not going to like keep you around for long, but it looks like it's such an innocuous thing and you don't see it coming. And then all of a sudden it burrows in and it's crawling under his skin. And he has set this up all the time. Keep saying, I don't like bugs. I don't like bugs. And then knowing that that's the way you're going to go out, it's just horrifying. And then for us to not know exactly what is happening, like it's playing on our worst fears. It's letting us fill in the gaps where it's like they don't need to show, they can just tell, and it comes across, and it's done very well. Whereas like the other one just leads to a dumb reveal that I don't think lands.
Time. Okay, let's go over to Tyler. Tyler, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
I don't think it's comical to lose your glasses. I think that anybody that's fumbled through the darkness trying to find something, afraid of hitting their pinky toe on something, has dealt with that fear of the unknown, of not knowing what's in front of you. Mr. Burns goes through that the entire time while he's in there. That gloomy atmosphere, having Benny who's supposed to help him be the reason why he doesn't have a light source, not knowing what to trust with sound, sight, feel, everything. Like that plays on every single part of what makes us afraid as people. That adds to that intensity. The fact that once it cuts away, as soon as he turns around, you don't know what just happened. You're intense. You're just like, he's dead. It's over. Then you see him later on. You're like, oh, he survived. I don't know how that happened. This is like, you get a little bit of relief, just like Evie does. You're like, this is our chance. He's going to be okay. And then once he turns around and you see that he has no eyes, you realize, no, he's a victim too. He's not going to be able to help. He wants them to help him. Like he's lost his tongue. He's lost his eyes. With the jailer, I mean, like I said, the scare of death, I think it's more intense later on once you know what it is than
time. Okay. Let's bring in the judges.
I do have to admit, us picking the same movie made the prep for this one real easy.
That's true.
Within 15 minutes of each other, too. That's great. That is the most thoughtful, I think, there's ever, like, yeah.
Yeah, why do this to ourselves? We don't, we can.
I mean, I don't need an excuse to watch this movie again. It's the best one.
That's true.
Rue and I did a Mummy debate, and we both picked the Mummy as well.
As you should.
What?
Because no one's picking the Scorpion King.
Ugh, no, or Dragon.
All right. Excuse me, Robert. You're kicking us off.
Yeah. I was trying to think what I would have picked. And I always thought like that scene where he's gonna get hung is kind of intense. The drop, and then like wondering how they're gonna bargain, or like the pygmy scene in Mummy Returns, something like that. I wasn't thinking about these scenes honestly, so interesting choices. But I think it did go back and forth. I think they did undercut each other pretty well. I was sort of leaning towards Bill a little bit. And then when he mentioned about comeuppance, and then I feel like he sort of hoisted himself on his own petard as Tyler sort of got him about the Benny death scene, and that's another scare of death scene. So I thought that sort of played against Bill. So I ended up going with Burch Tree, Tyler. Yeah, I'm going to do this all night. I don't care. Yeah, I just felt like the uncertainty about going in the dark, the sight gag, I guess, just going back and then coming back and not knowing what's going to happen, because if you haven't seen it, you don't know what the mummy's going to do. I thought were good arguments enough, though I wasn't necessarily enamored with either, honestly. But I think Tyler just did a little bit better.
Okay. I also went with Tyler. I thought Tyler did a good job of giving me the overall everything in the scene. Bill really Bill started to do that towards the end when Tyler called him out on it, but for the most part, Bill was kind of really hammering in the death, and the death being the intense part, and which is fair. But I think that Tyler was able to say like, well, my death moment is intense as well, but everything around it is also very intense. So I went with Tyler. Kirk, your thoughts?
I'm doing a good job filling in for Mark in the center square here, because once again, I'm the odd man out. I went with Bill. What it came down to is Bill basically just sold me a more visceral experience. I'm famously not a huge fan of this movie, and I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't really recall the details of these scenes. So just having them describe them to me I felt the intensity from Bill's description more, and I think Tyler did a really good job again, defending his and coming up with reasons why it is. But I just felt Bill's more.
Okay. All right. Well, we are going to move on to the third question. We're all tied up. The next question was drafted by Bill in the category of Fight Night. The question is, who should play Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat 2? And it can't be Carl Urban because we already know that it's Carl Urban. Forget Carl Urban. So, Bill, you're going to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So, when I think of Johnny Cage, especially if we're going to get introduced to him, when we first meet him, especially in the games, and all the lore, he's this cocky, like smug, movie star kind of prick. I mean, he could fight, it's fun to watch him, but he's also really smart. And there's a lot of people you could pick for this. So I'm gonna go with the one I feel like we did this person dirty, and I went with The Miz, Mike Mizanin. If you weren't unaware, he is a wrestler, and wrestling is better than anything you like. And I'm just gonna say that right now, but he had one of his best runs for a few years, and his entire character he was the A-list celebrity. He was Mr. Hollywood, and he embodied every bit of what Johnny Cage is and should be. He had it to a T, and that's why he went on a very successful run doing it time.
All right, Let's go over, excuse me, to Tyler. Tyler, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
For a bona fide movie star, I want to choose a bona fide movie star. So I went with Glenn Powell. I believe that with the things that he's done so far with his work in Hitman, Twisters, Top Gun Maverick, we've gotten a real good glimpse of the kind of actor that he is, what he brings to these roles. And I really believe that just the different aspects of Johnny Cage, he's really going to be able to lend a lot of weight to, because he's had prior experience working with that. Hitman, where he had to take on different personas, that's literally an actor playing an actor, which is exactly what Johnny Cage does. He's an actor who's playing as a martial artist. He's an actor who's playing an actor as a martial artist. So he has experience with that same kind of style. Also, that cocky smugness that we've talked about with Johnny Cage that he has. We see a lot of that, in Twisters. We see a lot of that in Top Gun Maverick. Like, that's his defining characteristic. But we also get to see a softer side of him, which is what Johnny Cage also has in his interaction with characters like Sonya Blade and Helping Humanity.
All right. 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
You ever see Man on the Moon with Nick Cage? Not Nick Cage, sorry. With Jim Carrey. It's a good movie. I like it fine. And here's the thing. He's given the inevitable task of playing Andy Kaufman, and he does okay, but at no point in time do I ever think, like, that's Andy Kaufman. Like, I just forget I'm watching, like, somebody like else. But the entire time I'm watching Jim Carrey. I'm like, that's Jim Carrey doing his best Andy Kaufman. And while I like Glenn Powell and I like the stuff that he does, I feel like we're going to fall into that trap of like, oh, there's Glenn Powell just being Glenn Powell, which is fine. I mean, it's serviceable. I just don't think he's going to bring anything to it special. Like, he's just going to do what he does. And he's fallen into that Ryan Reynolds, I'm just going to phone it in at this point because look at me, because I have abs and no lips for some reason. So I'm going to let you talk. I've been going on for a while.
Okay. I think that he would bring, I've seen movies, Hitman, Twisters, like, he's not just playing the same character in that one. In Hitman, he's playing a nerdy professor who has to pretend to be cocky and charismatic. He has to act like that. And you can really see that through. With Twisters, he's smug and cocky, like we've talked about, but we also see how much he really cares about the craft. He cares about those tornadoes. He's not just out there just to get acclaim. We've seen a lot of different roles from him, and I don't think he would phone it in. And I think that he would do a great job of fulfilling who Johnny Cage is. And I don't need somebody to disappear into Johnny Cage. I just need somebody who can embody the spirit of Johnny Cage and fit into the world that we're doing.
What I was going to say was what I need. is somebody that's gonna like, I feel like, care for this character and kind of embody that. And here's the thing, Mike the Miz, I'm just gonna call him the Miz just for the rest of this. Campaign and petition for years to play this part. He's done some acting. I'm not going to say the guy's like a fantastic actor, but he has like gotten his feet wet. But this is like the dream role that he's always wanted. And sometimes in life, it's just really nice to give people the thing they really want because they'll usually knock it out of the park. Like we just went through that. Ariana Grande trained for 6 months to take singing and acting lessons to do Wicked. And a lot of people were saying, hey, that was really fantastic. And I know that is in him. I know that's in the Miz, mostly because he already played that character to perfection. And if you don't think he has the range, then just Google the Miz talking smack and watch 2.5 to 3 minutes of a masterclass of how to get across emotion by just using your face and your words. And that guy fucking nails it. I believe everything coming out of his mouth at that moment. Glenn Powell's just going to do Glenn Powell, and which is fine. I'm not even going to say it's bad. It's probably going to be pretty good, but I'm just going to be like, that's Glenn Powell. Like, whatever. I don't know. That's just me.
So the thing about the Miz is, and I did, some research on him. You're right. He did have that era where he tried to be Johnny Cage as much as he could. The thing about him that I did notice when I was learning about his history is that when he first starts something, he's very unsure about himself. In the first 10 years before he did the Johnny Cage era, he was very unsure. He kind of went with the flow. I think that would translate into being in a major motion picture, because before this, he's only been in wrestling. He's only been in straight to video movies, which really don't have any expectations. This would be the first time, especially to be a focal point character, which we do know that Johnny Cage will be because he was teased at the end of the last movie. I don't see him coming in with that same confidence that he does in wrestling because he's unfamiliar with what's going on. He would start, he'd be very flexible and he starts to listen to everybody, and it becomes this hodgepodge of a character. He wouldn't be able to just be Johnny Cage. He would be the version of Johnny Cage the studio wants, the director wants, the score wants, and what he wants, what he thinks they want.
Okay, here's the thing. And I'm just going to give you a little context because I know these things. The reason why he was unsure of himself when he came in, because he came out from outside the wrestling world. And I don't know if you know anything about wrestlers. They're kind of awful when it comes to outsiders. He was hazed and bullied for the first 2 years of his career, forced to dress in the hallway. He wasn't allowed to hang out with everybody. Luckily, Benoit is a prick who's dead, and JBL has been found out to be a complete also asshole. So the reason why he's unsure of himself is because he had to deal with that, and he came out the other side, and that's when he started turning in groundbreaking performances. He held his own with Roman Reigns, with Stone Cold, with John Cena, and he did not look out of place in these feuds at all. That guy came into his own and stepped up and crafted a whole persona, and it's ready-made, ready to go. And when somebody gives you their heart and soul, they are going to give you wonderful performances every time. Glenn Powell's going to be Glenn Powell, and that's fine. I'm not even saying it's bad.
The real world.
I mean California.
All right. Tyler, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Like I've been saying about The Miz, being in wrestling and being in straight-to-video movies is going to be a lot different than being in a major motion picture where you're a focal point. I do believe that there's going to be a big adjustment period where he's really unsure of himself. He's really unsure of how to be an actor. He's really unsure of how to play his character, which means he's going to listen to everybody and he's going to put in a middling performance because he's trying to please everybody, and it's just not going to come through. Also, I saw in his videos that sometimes when he tries to act in a certain way, and when he tries to be, a good guy, he has a really hard time with that. He ends up limiting himself. And so when Johnny Cage needs to go through an emotional arc, yeah, you can play the cocky asshole, but I need him to also be somebody that's willing to lay it down for the earth. And I don't know if he would be able to make that transition. For Glenn Powell, there is experience in Hitman where he played somebody else, playing somebody else. His cocky smugness that he had in Twisters, the fact that he was also in Top Gun Maverick and he was cocky. He's also able to work really well with tough ladies because of his work with Daisy Edgar Jones and Adria Arjona.
All right. We'll move over to Bill. Bill, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
And I'm going to say this again. Glenn Powell's fine. I like Glenn Powell. He's enjoyable. But, I mean, he goes from cocky nerd scientist and hitman to cocky nerd scientist and twisters to, like, kind of cocky, but not really scientist, but aviation whiz in Top Gun Maverick. It's just going to be kind of like, it's going to be tap water at this point. It's fine. It'll keep you alive, but whatever. The Miz, I'm telling you, when people want something that bad, when it's their passion, you're going to get some kind of great things out of it. And he has lobbied for years, and he can take you to those places. And he has to do it every week in front of tens of thousands of people. And a lot of people from the outside of the wrestling world will come in and tell you that is not an easy thing to do, and most can't do it. He can do it. He knows how to work the crowd. He knows how to hit that emotion. I'm telling you, talking smack the Miz and watch 3 minutes of a guy getting to that place believably and him owning it. And not only that, you will believe him. That's why he is awesome.
Time. Ooh. Oh, as well. Trying to chew pretzels between takes. I got the Southwest seasoned.
I got coffee because I'm a psychopath. Yeah, so, yeah.
I drink energy drinks at like 11 o'clock at night. It's fine.
Okay, yeah, fair.
all
I
low
mean,
crazy.
mine's also instant, so it's barely caffeine, but I just like the taste. So. I can't hang with the energy drinks.
If I
I'm already
if I
the
wasn't
same.
sick right now, I'd normally be having a Cap and Coke with caffeine, but I have an ear infection, and
Oh, fun.
supposedly,
That's why you didn't hear my good stuff about Van Damme. That's it. Okay.
Yep. And supposedly you're not supposed to
Judge Bird.
to drink the alcohol with all the stuff. So.
I had to reevaluate some things. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm ready. How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right, Kirk, kick us off.
This is tough because I have opinions that I had to put aside for this fight.
Proud of you.
Ultimately, I had to go with Tyler. I think Glenn Powell is an extremely boring choice. I think Glenn Powell in general is incredibly overrated. I think you people are just too impressed by a nice jawline, whether or not there's anything else behind it. But Bill told me that I'd be getting Glenn Powell and same old Glenn Powell, but he just I was looking for it. I was looking for something to grasp him. I just didn't get enough other that he really wants it, and he has the potential. I wish Bill. I was waiting for Bill to talk about the fact that Miz does combat sports, and this is a movie about combat sports and the physicality of it. If he would have dropped that on me, he would have had my point. But we didn't get to that. We were just talking about acting, acting ability and emotion and range and things like that. So I had to begrudgingly give my point to Tyler.
Harsh. Robert.
Did I win the point? I don't feel like it.
I don't have any opinions on Glenn Powell because I haven't watched any of these movies, and I don't care. I really don't. He means nothing to me, so that didn't factor into anything. Bill started off strong. The idea that the Miz is a person who played a character within their most successful run of being a successful wrestler really got me. And then he sort of kept hitting the same beat of an argument against Glenn Powell, and Tyler was starting to tip it over. I needed something from Bill to sort of bring it home. And when he went back through the history of Glenn Powell and talked about what kind of roles he played, and then when he gave the background of The Miz, then it swayed me. So I gave it to Bill Drive My Cariola. Bill hates me right now, but you know what? I voted.
If I don't get dollar bill y'all by the end of the day, I'm gonna be pissed.
Maybe you will.
Okay, you had me running there, Robert. I thought you were going to vote for Tyler with your speaking. I did go with Tyler. I for some of the same reasons as Kirk. I do like Glenn Powell. I am swayed by a good jawline. That being said, I thought that the biggest thing that Tyler said was we're gonna need someone who can fulfill the vision of everybody else around the producers, the director, the writer, and everything. And you pointed out how, like, if this is this guy's first big budget major movie, he's not going to be able to do that, and it's going to be not good. Whereas Glenn Powell has proven to us that he can carry a movie, carry a role like this as well, and do the action, do the charisma, but also the heartfelt stuff. So I thought Tyler had a really good job here. I personally, again, I like Glenn Powell. I think Bill's story is more interesting. Like, the story of this guy is way more interesting. I know nothing about him, but based on the arguments, I went with Tyler. So Tyler is up 2-1, which means Bill has to hit this to send it to the speed round. The question was drafted by Tyler in the category of directors. The question is, which Christopher Nolan film should never get a sequel? Tyler, you drafted this. You get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
When I first saw this question, I thought that there would be multiple answers. But when I really gave it some thought, I realized there's really only one answer, and that is The Prestige, the magic movie about a great rivalry. When I rewatched The Prestige, I just remembered about why it's so important that this doesn't have a sequel, because it's not about the magic. You could do sequels with magic, just these guys that are trying to compete with each other. That's not what this is about. This is about a rivalry that literally leads to self-destruction. And, you see Angier, you see Borden, and you see how they constantly fight each other. They're trying to outdo each other. And the way that it just ruins them in the end. There's nowhere that you want to see these characters go. It's so tight. It's so tightly wrapped up by what happens in this movie. With the ending where one of the Borden twins is dead, Angier is dead, and we find out all their secrets. We realize that there's no more stories that we want to see in this. And if there were any other stories, it would just cheapen the experience.
Time. Okay. Let's move over to Bill. Bill, you have 1 minute to open when you start talking.
So, looking at his filmography, going through all these movies, I ended up landing on Dunkirk as the movie that should probably never get a sequel, mostly because that is a complete story. And if you know anything about it, it is about the evacuation of Dunkirk in World War II. It is a harrowing tale told about like the hardships these guys had to go through. It's minimal dialogue, but it is expertly done, as only Nolan can do it, of where it's all of these people trying to get out of this impossibly hard situation and all of the mounting problems that come along with that. And it is literally told by land, sea, and air. It is the bases are covered so well in this that I honestly do believe doing a sequel to this would just absolutely be a disservice. Plus, it's about a historical moment in time. I don't know, unless you do World War III, I don't see how you could possibly do a sequel.
All right. Dunkirk and The Prestige. 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
I mean, it's World War II. I get that it's been done to death in films and war movies, but this is really it's a microcosm. It boils down everything. It is just soldiers, and it's their last stand. They're trying to do the impossible. They're getting dogged at every turn, and we're watching like the airmen and the things they have to go through. The people on the ground trying to get off the beach, trying to get the wounded out. The family at sea, and we're literally getting every single perspective, including the common man who is not even a part of the fight. They just want to join it. There's no more meat left on this bone. There just isn't. Like that all of the Dunkirk saga is wrapped up in this film. Like, it's an absolute disservice to try to even make a sequel out of this.
So when I watched Dunkirk, I did see the story that you're crafting here. The thing about it, though, for me, is that I realized that this is about ordinary soldiers. It's about ordinary people who are not just the heroes of this war. They're not, killing commanders or anything like that. They were just trying to survive. For me, that means that really the sequel can go anywhere from there, because it's just focused on these ordinary people. When I was watching, I was like, okay, let me think about what kind of sequels we could get out of this. And like this was in 1940, so there's still 5 years left of World War II. So saying that the next sequel will be World War III, no, there's still plenty of story to tell in World War II. But I also thought about things like Farrier, when he's taken by the Germans at the end, after burning his plane, when he's behind enemy lines, following his story. Where does he go there? How does he escape? Does he escape? What is his experience? Things like the Shivering Soldier, trying to reacclimate to life after he's responsible for the death of one of the boys on the boats, and trying to overcome how he was shell shocked. Even a parallel movie where we find out about the French evacuation, where Kenneth Branagh's Commander Bolton is the connective tissue between the two while he waits for that evacuation after the successful evacuation of the British. Like, there are these stories that I'm interested in learning more about, that directly tie into what we just watched, as opposed to just saying, like, let's just go to some other battle. Like, these are direct lines.
So, okay, fine, but this is all about the Battle of Dunkirk. If you take these people out of Dunkirk, it just becomes something else. You might as well just put them in the guns of Navarone. But anyway, I've already kind of explained why mine's kind of a self-contained story. So let's talk about the obvious sequel that could come out of your movie. And I think given somebody like Nolan, he would probably excel at this. And you give me a parallel sequel from the twins' point of view. And we see the entire events from the film just from his side of like what they had to go through together, but what he had to do, putting on this makeup, living this dual life, and especially with how Nolan loves to tweak point of view, that could be an amazingly fascinating tale. Especially you have Christian Bale coming back. He could honestly kill this. And just looking at the movie, almost like a Back to the Future 2, where we're going back over the first one, but we're seeing it from a different angle and seeing the toll that it takes. Because let's face it, this guy had to only live half a life for like a lot of years. That's gonna wear on a human being. That is a fascinating story to tell, and Nolan is absolutely gifted enough to tell us that story.
I think having a movie based off the twins' perspective really would just ruin the Prestige. The whole point of the Prestige is misdirection. It's about mystery. So if you know exactly what's happening, the whole point of the Borden is that you don't know which twin is the one that you're getting that day. So if you take that away by having this one twin that it's the one that you're following, then all of a sudden your movie just becomes a lot less interesting, and you're just going, by the numbers, just watching him live this half life. If you want to do something like that, go see Doom 3, because that's kind of what they did in that movie. For me, like, there's nowhere you can go here that you should go. Everything that you do would just ruin the movie magic that you have here. It's tied up so well.
I'm going to disagree. I think there's still a lot, because you even said everything was completely wrapped up and done, but it's not. We're missing a big chunk of that story. And yeah, like, it would just continue on, but it would fill in a lot of the missing gaps. And doing it from a completely unique perspective, that's like pretty much Nolan's bread and butter. Could you imagine the Prestige by way of, like, I don't know, like his first movie, which name is not coming to me right now, Memento? Could you imagine Memento tied into this, and like we tell it by that way, where it's like we get the older Borden, but we're also filling in the gaps of like what he had to do? That's an amazing story that can be told. I don't see how you're getting any more story about a conflict that begins and ends. It's literally ends with them getting home at the end of the movie.
Time. Okay, Bill, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
When you do a historical biopic the way you're doing here, I mean, I can't remember any time in history where a historical movie has ever gotten a sequel. Maybe Gandhi 2 in UHF, but that was a bad idea. But that's the entire purpose. Like, we're just going to tie it off. Like, there's no need to make a sequel. We're just looking at this one moment, and he does it perfectly from the beginning of the conflict to the end, with them all getting home and getting the heroes welcome for just basically surviving. It's a wonderful story. Meanwhile, with the Prestige, if we can just give it from like the other twins' perspective, and with Nolan, especially how he likes to do dual narratives, I really feel like that could really exercise a lot of chops that, let's face it, he hasn't really done in the last movie or two, where like just putting a unique spin on that and just filling in a lot of the gaps in that story and getting to see what this does to the Borden twin, like how it affects him. Like it is a fascinating story. It would be an amazing character study that he hasn't given us in quite some time. It would rule.
All right, Tyler, you get to close now. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Everything Christopher Nolan did in The Prestige had a purpose. There are lots of things that he started out with, like the bullet catch that comes in later when Borden and Angier face each other. Things like the tank and getting, drowning in the tank. Everything he does, it usually has, if you see it before, it pays off in the end. If he wanted to tell anything from the twins' perspective, he would have. But what you wanted to focus on was the mystery, the misdirection of magic. And that's what he did. So having a twin movie really doesn't work. It'd be like Midnight Sun. Why does Midnight Sun exist for Twilight? We don't really care. That's no one cares about the twins' perspective. We don't care that he's a family man, that he loved the wife. Like, we just want to see this rivalry that we see in The Prestige. With Dunkirk, there are a lot of other stories to tell. I think it's a little bit of a cop-out to say that there aren't any sequels for war movies, because we want to see what happened to Tom Hardy's character Farrier after he landed his plane. We want to see more about the Shivering Soldier.
All right.
What's your shirt today, Bill?
The Mads from Mystery Science Theater. So,
okay.
Also, this really hurt arguing my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I'm not gonna lie, like it is. It's still my favorite. I fucking love that movie so much.
It is very good.
It really is.
It's really fun.
All right. I'm glad they both came with pitches prepared. That would have been rough if they hadn't. Both are interesting because I think on paper, Bill's is the correct choice by saying, like, this story is like it's a contained thing. If you take it out of Dunkirk, it's not Dunkirk anymore. And I thought that he had a good, not necessarily something that I would see from a Prestige sequel, but like something I hadn't thought of that I thought was really interesting. And kind of used his movie to support that. Whereas like Tyler used Dunkirk of just being like, these were all those characters there. We could still follow them. You could get a this movie or a this movie or a that or a this. And didn't have a ton of like substance to what those movies would be, but just like showed the off point of where it could go. So it was interesting. I did ultimately go with Tyler. I thought that despite what I just said, he had a really strong argument against Bill's sequel, of saying, The Prestige is a movie where the whole thing is very expertly crafted to be about misdirection. And if you bring in and just reveal the direction, it kind of ruins the movie. Whereas you can do these other shoot-off stories of Dunkirk, and there's still a lot of time in the war to go through. So I went with Tyler. Kirk, your thoughts?
I'm pretty sure that A Bridge Too Far is a sequel to The Longest Day.
Yeah,
So
Bill.
that's the only example I can think of. It might be more of a spiritual sequel. I don't know if it's technically like a direct sequel, but anyway, neither here nor there. Yeah, this ended up being a backdoor pitch question, and that's what it came down to. And I went with Bill. And my reason being is I feel like Bill had a very solid pitch and a very, specific idea, where Tyler had, okay, we can go this way or this way or this way, but didn't, like you said, there wasn't a lot of substantive. It just, there's possibilities where Bill honed in, and Tyler did come back with the, the movie was about this. But I think Bill did a good job coming back. Well, I think this is a perfect Bill saying this is a perfect project for Nolan because he likes to play with this stuff and he can find something else to do with it besides what was in the other movies. So ultimately, that's why I went with Bill.
All right, Robert, are we going to the bonus round or do we have a winner?
Why? Both times. At the end. Like, what is this? Like, I didn't sign up for this to be so.
You literally did.
I did, though. I did. Bill's right.
This is a literal job.
This is my literal job now. Okay. So yeah, when you hear the answers, you know, it's Dunkirk's a thing. It happened. It was a thing, and then it ended. And Nolan did a good job of containing it within that time frame. So Bill's made a lot of sense. But Tyler picked it apart really well with giving the ideas of pitches that what could happen. So what I needed Bill to explain to me how a pitch he could correspond with would rival what Tyler was saying. And I'm not the biggest fan of The Prestige, not because I don't like it. It's just I haven't watched it a whole lot. But I thought Bill did an expert job to give me something that made a lot of logical sense. Whereas I really just could not look past the idea that if you take Dunkirk out of Dunkirk, it's not Dunkirk anymore. It's just another. It's something else entirely. Even if there is more World War II thing. Remember when Edge of Tomorrow was supposed to be called "All You Need Is Kill"? All you need is Bill. So we're going to.
All right. So we are going to.
Could it just please not be Oscars this time?
I mean, we both
Fucking every time I've had to do this, it's Oscars.
All right. So I'm going to type the question into the private chat so you guys can see it. Here's how the bonus round is going to work. I'm going to say the question. I am then going to repeat the question. Once I've repeated it and posted it into the private chat, you guys can answer the question. I randomized which side of Fanzone this would come from, general movies or fandom. And then I randomized the remaining categories that weren't drafted for this match. Do you have any questions about how this is going to... Oh, yeah, you guys each get 45 seconds, then you each get 30 seconds.
Yep. I have a question.
Yes.
Why is Robert using the money in the bank case as his whiteboard?
Because it was a gift.
Because he's going to come and just immediately challenge the winner.
I get that reference now.
Maggot.
Right? Good stuff, man. Wrestling's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So the side of Fanzone that was randomized was General May Zone movies, whatever. Not fandom. And the
You
category
should really just call it not fandom. I would fucking pay you money for that.
the not fandom. And the category that was randomized was comedy. Your question in the category of comedy is: which comedic actor working today has the best filmography? So again, which comedic actor working today has the best filmography?
Oh, that's really fucking hard, by the way.
I'm going to go with Jim Carrey.
Okay.
Paul Rudd.
Okay. I'm going to stay on screen for this. We've got Jim Carrey versus Paul Rudd. Tyler, you're going to be going first because you spoke first. Tyler, you have 45 seconds to open your argument for Jim Carrey when you start talking.
So best comedic actor, I think, is Jim Carrey. He's done 40 years of 40 years of movies. There are highlights like Ace Ventura, The Mask, Liar Liar, The Cable Guy, Me, Myself, and Irene. I mean, Eternal Sunshine, Spotless Mind. I can go on and on. The thing about him is that he's not just a comedic actor. He also has a lot of really great turns in like family films, like the Sonic movies, like he's in right now, where he's putting out some of his best work. Things like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which is still for most people, especially my age, that is the pivotal Grinch movie, which is saying a lot. He also knows how to play off a lot of really great actresses and get their best performances. And he just, he's always good for a laugh. Even if you think that he's missing something.
Okay, Bill, 45 seconds.
The incredible thing we never really realize about Paul Rudd is he's been in it just as long as Jim Carrey. He's been going since the 90s, and there's no signs of slowing down. In fact, I think he's actually gotten better. While he has done amazingly comical performances, especially when you get films like Anchorman, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he has a bit in that, where like, I Love You, Man, like this guy brings it. And there is a sincerity to it that drives his comedy, and that just makes him just so funny, and he's so effortless in how funny he is. Just seeing him in real life and just seeing how he interacts with like interviews and like the whole Conan bit where he keeps showing the same clip over and over again that he has 15 years. It's fucking hysterical. It's funnier than anything like I can imagine most people doing.
Time. All right, Tyler, 30 seconds.
With Paul Rudd, I think he has a lot of filmography that is just forgotten. Things that you look through and you just kind of forget that they're there. Things like Reno 911 Miami, The X, like a lot of really random movies that you didn't really hear about. Jim Carrey, I mean, every time he does a movie, he is the standout. He really makes people he catches their eye. They literally will see that movie because of him. I mean, you're probably not going to go see Bruce Almighty if it weren't for the fact that it was Jim Carrey that had those powers and how he's able to bring that comedic performance.
Time. Bill, 30 seconds.
Not to burst your bubble. Jim Carrey has just as many duds in his like category in his whole filmography. No one went and saw the number 23 because he was in it, because that shit was like box office poison. Meanwhile, Paul Rudd, while Jim Carrey's career has kind of faded off into the suns a little bit, maybe he pops up in a Sonic movie every once in a while. Paul Rudd managed to parlay into the MCU, where he turned all of his like strengths into that, became Ant-Man. He was in one of the most successful movies ever in Endgame. And all because these amazing performances he does in that, and he even manages to pull it off in movies like Clueless. He's classic.
Fuck. Okay. Oh man.
I hate doing these. I'm never good at these. Like my brain just a million things a minute. I also did my best to not be yelling at you the entire time, Tyler. I know you're a real chill dude. I was trying to bring the chill energy. So, yeah. I could yell at Nazario and Bard because they're pricks, but like you're good. You're good and wholesome. You're too pure for us fucks. So,
oh, that was funny.
I mean, if you had, I either would have yelled back or cried. Who knows? You know.
You should have
cried.
Oh.
I would like to see what happens when you're painted into a corner. That would be weird, because it's never happened. Because people just take the Bill approach.
Okay, Robert, you're starting.
Yes, thank you. God. Great fight. It was a great one. It really was a seesaw. I thought the offense on both were very good. But considering the nature of the question, we're just talking about filmographies. I just thought Tyler gave more. So Ty $sign got this one for me just because he gave me a bit more of the filmography, and it spoke to me a little bit more than what, you know, the bit on Conan, which I love. Mac and Me is fantastic, but when we're just talking about filmographies, Tyler just gave me a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with Robert. This was tough. This was really good. I also agree with Robert. The Mac and Me thing, while hilarious, was not important to the conversation at all. That being said, I went with Bill, and here's why. The question is about the filmography. It's also about what is the best filmography. I think at the end of the day, Tyler probably named 2 more movies than Bill did. He did a lot in his first half, named none in his second. Bill named a lot between both. The reason I went with Bill was I felt, and again, this was really close, but I felt like everything against Paul Rudd that Tyler threw to Bill had a decent answer of saying, like, there's shit in Jim Carrey's portfolio too. He's only doing these Sonic movies now, and it's fun, I guess, but like, Paul Rudd is still knocking him dead. I thought the number 23 thing, giving another movie, a filmography movie for Tyler, but pointing out that, like, no, like, you could say that Paul Rudd doesn't bring, but you could say that Jim Carrey always brings people to the theater, but that's just not true. So I thought that Bill did a good job of shaking that down, and his final 30 was much stronger than his first 45. And I thought that he did a really good job bringing up the MCU is a big thing. Like, saying, like, he brought his comedic stuff to Ant-Man and then to the biggest movies ever. Like, yeah, I thought that was a good point. So it was really close, but that's kind of what I clung on to. Kirk, you are deciding this one. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's tough, especially questions like this, because just like, hey, here's some opinions. Here's some more opinions, and you kind of have to just distill a objective argument from that. So it's challenging. I think they both did a really good job of defending why their pick was the better filmography. I won't keep him in suspense. I'll explain why after I show name, but I went with Bill. And I think the reason why Bill did falter towards the end of his first argument when he started talking about Conan and stuff, and if he would have stayed on that, it would have been over for him. But I think he rallied really well, and I think what Bill did, he did a really good job overall of building an argument for consistency for Paul Rudd, because he brought up early on, he's been in the game as long as Jim Carrey has been, but where Jim Carrey is kind of not really, his filmography is a lot more front loaded, but if you look at consistency, Paul Rudd's still doing it. He's still doing the MCU and these big movies, and generating these movies in his filmography this late in the game. So again, great arguments by Tyler, but I think Bill just crafted a little something better there.
Well, that means your winner is Bill Cariola. We are going to go to post-match interviews. We will start by talking to Tyler. Tyler, really great. Excuse me. Really great job today. I think this is one of your better debates. Bonus rounds, not your friend, is it? I'm looking at your stats, and it's not your friend, unfortunately. But I think that you've crafted some really, really good arguments in your prep rounds. How are you feeling after the match?
Definitely let down. Just because of the way the speed round went. I mean, as soon as it was comedy, I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. It hasn't gone my way. I haven't gotten any strength speed rounds. So I will say I felt like I was able to articulate a little bit more this time with my speed round. I was able to put out more points, because usually, I'll say like a couple of things and then be like, oh, time's over. Like, I need to move on. So I think that's a good sign. I feel really, really proud that I won the Mortal Kombat 2 question, because I'm going to be honest with you. I asked my friend to tell me about The Miz. He told me about The Miz for 15 minutes. I was like, holy shit, this guy is Johnny Cage. And then I watched a 40-minute video about The Miz, and I was just like, oh my God, this guy is so Johnny Cage. So I literally just was like, I'm just going to pick up these crumbs I found, and I'm going to see if I can just drill down enough to be able to make enough cracks happen to swing the point. So I feel pretty good about that one. Yeah, I mean, I think overall, I felt really solid about all of these questions. I didn't know what I was going to get hit with, with Bill, because it could be anything, but I felt really good about the prep for this. So I know I'm, on a losing streak and things haven't been going well, but I feel like I've still been getting better as a debater, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler, we love having you here. We'll definitely be having you back. And I'll ask you the age-old question. Who do you want to debate next time? Other than Kirk.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really, maybe like a maybe just somebody new. I mean, maybe somebody hasn't challenged for a belt would be cool. Be a nice change of pace.
You think you can convince Brittany to get in here?
I mean, maybe, but we'll see. That one would be interesting, but also I feel like we would just be like just hanging out, and then you guys would be like, "Did they talk about anything that we can use for this?" And then it'd be hard for you guys. I don't want to do that to you. So
that's fair. Tyler, congrats on a match well played. We'll see you next time as we bring in the winner, Mr. Cariola. Bill, you are back at 500 now, 5-5. How are we feeling about this win?
I'm going to tell you, as soon as I lost Mortal Kombat, I'm like, here it comes again. And this is where I fall apart. And I feel like that was my run for a little bit. Tell you what, it's ever since I played this guy, I've had the yips. It's just been a downward spiral of just sadness. Look up the yips. It's a thing. It's medical. So, and I've been in my own head, and that's what it, like it was from Nazario to Coho to Bar. It was always like so close. And then I, for some reason, go off on weird tangents that have nothing. Maccabee is a fucking great bit. I don't know what possessed my brain to yell that out, but now I kind of want to watch the super clip of him showing it to Conan for 30 years.
So
it's fucking, it's like the Maccabee bit and then Walker, Texas Ranger are the two greatest things Conan O'Brien has given the world. And I always just look back on them and laugh and just giggle. So, but this was actually it was nice to have a calm, gentlemanly debate this time. So
that's
right. Didn't want to bring the fire. Tyler is just the nicest human being. He truly is. So I'm like, I don't want to scare him, or hurry him off, or just to drive him to drink. Because I could be, well, let's face it, I could be a fucking lunatic. And that's why you bring me here. That's why you paid the admission. And that's fine, but every once in a while, I'm like, okay, I want to be chill today. I want to just try that out, give it a whirl. I don't know if it's for me. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be fucking yelling the next time. So you blow your fucking speakers out.
That's fair.
But it's nice to kind of hopefully turn this losing skid around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Bill, I don't know exactly who you're playing next, but I do know that you'll have another match very soon in the tournament. So you will be there. Again, don't have all the seedings yet, so I don't know exactly where you're going to land, but I'll know in like a week.
Yeah,
so,
I want to face anybody but Kirk. How about I'll be that person? You know who I would? Would be fun. One person not in the league and one person that is. Not in the league. John Marr in this shit would be fucking insanity.
That's true.
It really would. It really would. Let's make that happen. But
it's on the side. Yeah.
Maybe me and this guy. Maybe this guy one time. Could you imagine that? Huh? Well, the handsome bearded fucking devils just going at it. I could make you watch some Canucksploitation. You would fucking end our friendship. It'll be a great time.
Bill, I look forward to whatever's next from you.
Yeah.
That would be fun. So, Bill, congrats on the win. That is going to do it for us today at Fanzone Debate. I want to thank Tyler and Bill. Thank you to Kirk and Robert for judging, and thank you to everyone else behind the scenes who helps make it run. Your Bryans, your Marks, your Nicks, whoever else I'm forgetting, because I'm sure there are other people. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
There we go. Thanks a lot. Come again.
Hey, I won't forget what you've done for me here today.
I would prefer that you do.